Yes, I was serious when I said that we support all cultures and peoples except for one type. If you are an American,
if you are, Jesus Christ,
and you're listening to this,
support you if you're me.
Gentlemen, this whole podcast is a wash. We got to start over.
If you were an American citizen,
that was an excellent joke. Yeah, perfectly set up.
Welcome to All Topics No Pizza, where we start with a basic idea for conversation, then derail ourselves with new topics until we are light years away. I am Matt, also known as Rhuminus.
I'm just Deion.
And I'm wishing I had some co-hosts who knew how to use their recording equipment.
I know how to use my recording equipment, and as a matter of fact, I added all these I said about videos.
You're fucking it up already.
God damn, this is audio. You piece of shit.
Look at you. You're stumbling over your words.
We're leaving it in. We've done this intro like 4 times. We're leaving it in. Fuck it. Let's go. All right. What's happening?
I don't know. Well, you had a topic today.
I don't know.
I specifically avoided a topic so I wouldn't hog up 2 hours of talk time because last week.
Me and Nick were going to sing Happy Birthday to Mr. Rhuminus, but we already tried it. I don't even know how many times, and he just keep.
Let's not talk about the fact that you forgot about it last time and didn't even mention it, and had to be reminded of it.
So unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, we're not going to hear me and Nick sing beautiful dulcet tones of jubilee and celebration for our wonderful friend.
Which is a shame.
But happy birthday, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations. You're 1 foot closer to the grave.
My man understands my mentality. I am ready to go. Let's go. I have been expecting the Grim Reaper at any moment, that scythe to come and take me. Holy shit. This adult world is miserable and rough. No one ever told me it was going to be something miserable.
You're not going to get the Grim Reaper. You're going to get the Rim Groper. He just comes into your bedroom at night and sort of pops the booty cheeks open.
You make it sound like a miserable dude.
Well,
I've been single for almost a year. I'm kind of ready. I'm kind of,
ready for just a bony old man to walk into your night.
Please, if anybody breaks into my house again, please don't grow up me. I actually don't want that.
Don't bring manager dicks either.
All right, so we're going to scrub the last episode. Nick has changed his mind. We're not having manager dicks. Deion, you can change our Patreon again to make it child friendly.
I already can't do that because we've already talked about it.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to actually go.
It's too late to instate a bleep.
So we're actually going to get on with this episode. And what I want to talk about is rejection and the fear of failure. Because the one thing I notice a lot is that people have extreme reactions when they get rejected, either whether it's by a girl or a boy or whatever. They try to do something sexual and you go, hey, I want to ask you on a date, and they go, no thank you, and then they get really mad. Or it's a fear of failure, whether it's a job or anything else. It's okay. That's the one thing I want to point out is it's okay. I have failed at many points. I want to point out that I am in my mid-20s. I have a house. I have a podcast with my friends. I'm doing pretty well. I have failed at many points. I have made many mistakes, and it's okay. It is perfectly okay to admit that you're wrong. It is perfectly okay to admit that also maybe that this isn't a right fit. And that is something that is missing from a lot of people.
I don't know how we ended up in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, but let me counter your counter.
This has been Matt, also known as Rhuminus. Fuck Nick is my end result. And Mr. Rogers, you're a lovely man and you are perfect, and I don't want to discard you in any way.
Be totally afraid of failure. You don't understand. Failure is the thing that keeps you going. Be afraid of it, but also be aware that it's gonna happen whether or not you even try. Like, you're gonna fail if you don't try, and you're probably gonna fail if you do. And you should be terrified of that failure, but you shouldn't be paralyzed by that fear of failure or rejection.
Or you should be, is what you're saying.
No, you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be paralyzed, but you should be afraid.
So where
you should recognize that there is a risk reward thing. That's the whole point of fear, is saying there is a risk here. There is something that makes me uncertain, uncalmed by.
I don't think that means you have to be afraid or fearful.
I think it's healthy to be afraid of failure. I think it's unhealthy to be obsessed with the fear of failure. I think which is something that I run into a lot. I'm constantly like telling myself, don't do this because you're going to fail. Like doing this podcast. Like my mind tells me is like, we're going to fail. But I'm doing it despite the fact that I know that we're basically at the very everything least, I say.
Once again, we have three stooges talking to a microphone into the abyss. At the very least, we are three friends talking to each other, having a good time. Even if we fail and don't have any manner of listeners or success, we had a good time.
We can fail together.
Yeah.
And that's the most important part. The failure was the friends we made along the way.
It's going to be really, really sobering when in like a year after like, 50 episodes, I guess. Because we do it weekly. We have like 10 consistent listeners.
Oh God! If there are 10 people who listen to even
but that would be a success for me. Yeah.
I'd be terrified.
No, but like I know it sounds really sad, but if we have even 10 consistent listeners after a year, 50 episodes, I would consider that a success.
But hey, future number one who listens to us for the first time and is like, you know what? I'm going to turn in for every episode after this one. You're my person. You're my favorite person in the world. And I hope you're listening to this episode because I think it's garbage.
I have to disagree with your base. Your addendums I agreed with. You shouldn't be paralyzed by fear, although most people are, including myself for the most part. But I'm trying to teach myself not to be afraid of trying, because the thing that I'm afraid of when trying is failing. But the thing that Matt was talking about was like, you're gonna fail. But the thing that failure indicates to me, usually now that I've thought about it as an adult, is that it's an indication of progress. You cannot become a master of a craft if you don't fail. Like, imagine being so good at something that people in the industry were like, yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Oh, you try the new thing. That's good. Try this harder skill. Oh, yeah, that's good. You wouldn't actually ever learn anything because you would never have to ever try again. And you wouldn't actually even be able to teach other people because your advice would be, just do it. You'll get it. Because that's all you knew. And that's not, that's not good advice. Just get good, bro. It's not constructive. Failure breeds innovation. It breeds perseverance and tolerance and good and other good habits in general when it comes to trying. You should always try. You shouldn't be afraid to try. And you should be wary of failure because you can usually avoid it with the right resources, but not everyone has those resources. And not everyone can avoid failure. But even if you're alone trying to learn something new, there is a ton to be comforted by in failure. You can learn from your own mistakes. You can learn from the mistakes of others if you're particularly wise. And it is something not necessarily to be welcomed, but to be expected and then used for your own benefit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so the reason I bring this up is because there's been a recent development in my family with rejection and kind of that kind of thing. But it's also, I'd hate to go into this as well because it's going to become my goddamn catchphrase at this point. When I was a teacher, I saw this all the time where students were afraid to try anything new. And it was particularly involved with math because math is a required subject, so you have to take it. And they were afraid to try anything new because they were afraid to fail. And one thing they quickly learned in my class is I don't give a shit, honestly. My thing is I don't take off for your late points. I don't do any of that. If you can do the work, whether it's the beginning of the semester or at the end, I don't care. I care that you learn and can apply the math knowledge. For me, the issue with people being so afraid of rejection is that they don't try anything new. They don't try anything new because they go immediately, oh, I'm going to fail. What's the difference? What's the point? Why even bother? And they don't learn anything. And that's failure is a part of learning. I was a math teacher and I had little remedial, like dumb person math in 7th grade because I failed 6th grade math so badly. A lot of that had to do with I didn't pay attention. I was so emotionally troubled and all that stuff. And I just didn't do any math work. But it still shows the fact that like I was at a low point, but then I ended up teaching math because I actually was good at math. I just needed to realize it and try and do all these things. But I had to fail to get there. And that also involves with I had to fail in a lot of aspects to get good at life. And it's okay. I've been rejected by a lot of women. I've also been called literally, and I'm quoting here, angelic. And that confuses the shit out of me. But that's also part of life is that there are people that even though no matter how attractive you are, no matter how good looking you are, will reject you. And I think that's mostly to do with the fact that my voice, especially when I actually talk in my natural voice, which is quite deep and intimidating, and my face, which is quite severe, is probably not the most.
I do. I think that's a good word for your face.
In before face reveal request.
Allow me to counter.
Go for it, son.
There is a UFC fighter, and I cannot find his name right now. But I was listening to a podcast with one of my coworkers last night, and there's a UFC fighter whose win to loss record is like lifetime is 10 and 106, I believe was the number. He has lost 106 fights.
For every single win?
Won 10.
Oh, 10. Oh, the record, the full record, okay.
Right, the full record. He's only won 10 in his whole lifetime of fighting.
And he's a professional fighter.
A professional fighter. So what do you say to the person who literally has done exactly that? Who has tried and tried and tried and tried and tried and keeps trying and continues to fail? Like, that's the problem.
I would say
there is that reality. Of
course.
You can try and try and try and try and never succeed. And I think that's part of the reason I say you need to be afraid of fear, of failure.
I still
because
disagree.
There is a reality there.
No, I still disagree. And I'll tell you why. Because that guy is still trying, right?
He is. And he has not given up.
Right. And as a result of that, despite failing to win 106 fights, he's beaten 10 people that are also considered professional fighters. And he is more successful by an exponential amount than everyone who's ever not tried to start their own fighting career or whatever career that they're in, or anyone who stopped after a certain amount of losses.
Well, and that's that
because
paralysis.
he still has a career. Like, yeah, sure, he's bottom of the barrel, pretty literally.
He's Glass Joe, my dude.
Who?
Glass Joe from Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. He's the first dude you fight, and you can take him out in one hit. Hence the name Glass Joe.
But the point is, right, like, still got a career.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, that's true.
Moderately successful as a result. Like, sure, you don't want to be known for the guy that loses, but at the same time, there are 10 people that lost to you. How do you think they feel?
I would love to find the worst of the professionals of a profession.
You know what my favorite part about professionalism is, especially in terms of sports?
I mean, it's nonsense.
Because you hear about this analogy that I'm about to quote. My favorite thing is, because it's mostly true, a baby is closer in skill level to, this is an exaggeration, but it's basically true. I'll say a child is closer in skill level to you as an adult at playing football than you are to the worst professional football player.
Exactly.
And I love that analogy because if you think about it, that's crazy. Like, there's no way that the worst football player who's getting a salary on a professional football team in the NFL is so much better than me that I'm comparable to a child. But the truth is, because the skill bar is actually so high that it's actually true.
That even if you are literally sitting on that bar, you're still 1,000 times better than anybody below it. They also
say this about like chess players, like grandmasters.
Oh
like,
my God.
It's such a waste of time for a grandmaster to play someone who's not basically in their bracket. That your time would be better spent playing a baby. Like, it's less of a waste of your time to play your infant than for the grandmaster to play with you. Like,
The baby will learn more playing with you than the grandmaster, or than you will learn.
You would learn from a grandmaster. It's actually true. Like
you'd just be like, this is calculus at this point. I don't even know what's going on.
And that's true of most professionals that have put in the work to earn their title in most fields.
And that's why I say like objective professionals, not subjective professionals. Yeah. Where it's like, right now we are subjectively.
What's that supposed to mean? Are you judging my editing skills?
I do not consider us a professional podcast crew.
No.
Once we make our first contractual deal or make a paycheck or something, I'll be like, all right, objectively, I am a part of this profession now.
I have a question. So I have a question. Assuming that we make enough recordings and then have enough listeners for advertisers to be like, yeah, we'll put an ad on your page or whatever. Our first check, if we ever get one, is going to be like cents on the dollar.
So the mark
do you consider that to be the mark, or do you want it to be like livable wage? That's the mark.
So
okay,
that's the marks. I mean, it doesn't have to be quit my job. I don't consider you a professional until you are being paid for what you're doing. And that's only because we live in a horrible capitalist regime.
I think that's what it is. I think that professionalism is a substrate of capitalism. I think a professional is a specific type of worker in a capitalist society. Being paid a certain amount because you are the leading expert or among the group of higher tier quality adepts, etc. I think that is the mark of a professional. I think a professional is a product of a capitalist society.
Right.
Because when you say, because a professional is just someone who works in this profession for money, I'm pretty sure. I'm a professional football player. I'm a professional soccer player. I'm a professional chess player. I only have examples for sports.
Which is odd because you are not a sports guy at all.
Professional comedian, you don't say professional artist, professional businessman.
Yeah, I'm not. You don't say. You can say I'm a professional businessman. You're making money. You don't say I'm a professional teacher though. You just say I'm a teacher. So I'm confused now because because teachers make money, objectively speaking, but no one has ever said I'm a professional teacher, even college professors.
But like the Greeks, Romans, all those ancient peoples, they paid for their teachers. So you were only educated if you were a part of the aristocracy. There we go. That's the word. Aristocracy of the rich class, because everybody else didn't have the money for it. So where we kind of take for granted the public school system and that we all pay taxes for supposedly a better society where everybody's educated. What do you say about that? Where Rome flourished for 1,000 years based on the fact that they paid.
Because at the time, education was a pastime.
It was something you did, not recreationally, but you paid a service for.
Yeah, it was a service rather than a thing.
I would call those individuals that did teach for pay, I would say those were professional educators.
But
I would use the modifier.
Yeah, but for you, and people that don't really know, the teachers in those times were not they didn't have a tie and suit on. They were literally slaves. Romans had Greek slaves that
did they pay those slaves?
Deion, you're black.
Yeah. I know what I'm asking you. Did they pay those slaves?
It depends on you mean payment. No, because the payment is that we house you, we feed you, but you are a slave. You are our property. But I mean, and that's
right. Unless those individuals went into those arrangements knowingly and willingly, I wouldn't call those people professional educators.
They were not.
I would call them enslaved workers, and I would say that they were required to do a service. How did they come to be commodities? Were they prisoners of war, and then we found out that they had a knowledge which made them valuable? Or did they have debts that they then were levied against enslavement? Like because the Greeks, I don't know anything about them, or the Romans or whatever.
So the basic premise of it is that as Latin is considered knowledgeable and kind of bougie to us, Greek was considered that to the Romans. So if you spoke Latin, it's just like whatever, you speak English. But if you spoke Greek, you were high class, you were aristocracy.
Right, you speak French to us.
Yeah, basically. And actually, French was aristocracy to the English, the old English. So if you spoke French, you were actually very rich and bougie. Yeah. So
there's always a language that we think is more superior to our own.
Yeah.
At the moment, I believe it's Japanese.
Interesting.
Ooh,
I would not have guessed.
You know what I think is super inferior to our own language, despite all of its borrowings from that language and similar shortcomings?
German.
Latin?
Matt, you know the answer.
Oh, French.
Fuck French.
Fucking French. This is.
God,
I'm gonna change
French,
the name
we got
to.
two French haters over here.
I'm gonna change the title of our page to "Fuck French, Hate Language."
Fuck French, you piece of shit. It's the French hating hour. Ding, 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 ding.
Dear
Give me
France,
some air horns.
I want to make this message. I love you, France, and I'm sorry these two heathens are so.
Mute him.
I wanna make
He's
this message.
ejected. He's ejected from this. Mute him. Not allowed.
And that you guys have attitude problems and think you're a little bit superior to everybody else, but your language is pretty beautiful.
All right,
and
Nick, answer me one thing. What is a noun?
Good. You guys gave Julia Childs to America, so like I'm not going to be mad at you guys. France is pretty good.
You were. This part of the segment is going to be in the exclusive tier of our Patreon because you can only hear that if you really want to. That is just.
I swear to God, if you cut me out because I'm talking.
We are hyper cutting that out.
blasphemy.
Remember when I talked about fornicating peanut butter, and you guys, he's gonna cut that out. I'm like, no, the fuck, I'm not. And in both episodes, I'm not. Well, guess what? In this episode, I'm cutting you the fuck out because you are gone. You are evicted.
This is a French hate page by the numbers. Until me and Matt are outnumbered by French sympathizers like your pathetic ass, this is a French hate page, and I'm sticking by it.
Dear France, can you guys build me a guillotine? Because I think I need to go full revolution on some people over here.
I'm gonna beat some ass. I've talked.
I'll let them eat their cake.
I've been to Italy where there were French people from Paris, and they said, "Nah, we don't like French people. The French language is weird."
No, of course.
And I say the same thing about English. English is fucking weird, and I fucking hate the language for the same reason I hate the French language. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. And I'm spitting
ask
everywhere
an
on my
American
microphone.
if they like Americans. It's 50-50. You'll get an American who's like, no, fuck Americans. And then you'll get an American who's like, nah, America's the best country on the planet.
And then I immediately go,
But also correct.
have you been anywhere outside of even your state? And they go, no, man, why would I go outside my state?
Man, to be fair,
I can't.
I
talk
wouldn't
to
go
people.
outside my state, but not out of choice, but because I'm a prisoner to my own country, as we all are.
Yeah.
I have to ask before I
because you
say
literally
this.
have to pay to get out of your country. So I don't know.
Yeah, I have to say. So I know Matt is international. Parks, have you traveled outside of Maryland?
I have traveled outside of Maryland. I have not traveled outside of the United States.
That's fine. Neither have I. I've almost a lot of.
I really
times,
want to go
but
to Puerto Rico.
I cannot hold a conversation, and I've tried with a person who's not left their own state yet. When I was in college, I went to a college that had self-touted itself as the most diverse college in America. And per the numbers, I believe at the time that I went, it was true. We had the most states included.
You also
in
have
our
like negative 40
population.
wind chill, which I have a problem with.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. And we also had the most number of international students per student across the nation, which was pretty cool. It was an indie art. I almost said indie. It was a liberal art school in the middle of nowhere. And the thing is, it was hard to meet someone that hadn't left that state. So it was in Illinois, and it was just straight up just cornfields in every direction. After about 20 minutes driving,
I've driven there. Pretty sure.
Chicago was about 3 or 4 hours away via car and via train. It was the same. It was crazy. The only people that hadn't left Illinois were people that lived there but the people that had lived in that city their whole lives. And you cannot hold a real conversation with them because the type of people that don't live their city, that don't leave their city and don't leave their state, don't leave their country are not the kind of people that a person who has come out of state to go to college basically can hold a conversation with, because you're interested in learning, which they don't do, obviously, and you're interested in like maybe even foreign affairs or national affairs at least, which they're not because they've never left their county. You can't talk to these people. I feel like not possible.
Not to be weird, but I feel like that's a little bit of a privileged point of view. I'm
going to go ahead and agree with you off the bat because I was privileged enough I didn't finish my college degree yet, but I was privileged enough to get assistance, which is an insane statement to make. I was privileged enough to get assistance from the state to go to college out of state. I feel that's almost a contradictory statement, but whatever. I got no help from my family. I only got help from the state, and I didn't even get to finish because apparently paperwork. We'll get to that later, if ever. But the thing is, because of the fact that I know that state assistance exists, and I'm going to quickly jump into another thing that I'm passionate about. You don't get to not know things anymore as an adult. In some states, not every state, in some states you need an address to get a library card, but in most places you can get a library card, which allows you computer access, which allows you internet access, which allows you news access. If you want to know something for the most part, and even if you are homeless, which is not saying that you don't have other issues, context is everything, right? But like even homeless people, if for some reason their priority was keeping up with shit or learning new things, you don't really, in my opinion, get to not know something. Not knowing things is the most privileged stance. But so excluding the fact that we allow homelessness to happen, that's a whole different thing. People that have homes, period, can have library cards, period, can know whatever they want to know. You're choosing to be ignorant. People that don't leave their home states, which is a matter of wealth, sure, can know things. But when you choose to not know anything, I have a problem with you. You have a responsibility. Let me take that back.
I have a completely meaningless statement that I think means everything right now.
Yeah, go for it. Because I could be wrong.
Knowing something is not the same as understanding things. Understanding things requires lots of time and effort. Knowing things does not require much effort at all. So while you're correct that I think people don't have a right to know things, or don't have a right to not know things, I think it's very important that they know things. I think we need to understand that even if they know it, it's very likely that they do not understand it. And understanding is what actually matters here. If you want to have a meaningful conversation, you want to have a conversation with someone who understands what they're talking about.
But I think not that understanding can come from conversations between two people that know something. So maybe you know something and I know something, and maybe we know similar things. Maybe I don't understand something that you do know and that you do understand. Through conversation with you, because I have a base of knowledge, you can bring me to understanding, right?
We're getting what I'm talking about is mathematics here.
And this is the important part. If the other person is willing to understand.
Right. You can't force someone to want to know something or want to understand something. I know that specifically as a black man in America. You can't make people understand something. We're not doing this.
Well, the answer is because I'm black, you dumbass. Come on. Part of education, and new age education, I would say particularly, is what's called Bloom's taxonomy, where it starts with raw knowledge. And that is where you can say 3 times 3 is 9. But then you reach up to the next level, which is, okay, when would you use 3 times 3? And then you would say, why is 3 times 3 is 9? And you kind of go up the ladder. And that is where, as you said, it is important that people understand and can actually apply knowledge and figure out what's true, what's not, and in what context. Because just saying 3 times 3 is 9 is nice.
Doesn't mean anything, yeah.
Yeah, when you're just multiplying. When you were literally just giving a test and saying 3 times 3 equals what? Sure, 9. But why? When? Where? How? What's the situation?
Everyone knows do you know what the golden ratio looks like, you two?
Oh, the Fibonacci. Fibonacci
so for those of you that aren't familiar, in the most
very much terms, yes,
in the very most layman terms, you've seen the golden ratio on some meme somewhere.
You've seen it in
nature. It's a little spiral that's looping in on itself inside a rectangular box with arrows creating boxes going deeper and deeper onto the spiral. It's nifty. But the reason it's called the golden ratio, and I can't even begin to explain the actual reason, is because there's a vastly complex series of numbers and theorems and pieces of information that make this perfect mathematic ratio very appealing to our eye.
So,
damn, that math is sexy, son.
The golden ratio is the first mathematical phenomena that I became obsessed with as a child. And I did my own sort of like independent search into understanding it. So I looked up all the things and articles that related to the golden ratio. the Fibonacci sequence, the way that it was applied in nature, or rather discovered in nature, the way that it just existed, the way that we didn't used it in all different forms of math and technology. It's one of my favorite mathematical phenomena, which is, I think, what it's called, because it's not something we invented, it's something we discovered to be true.
I'm surprised that Deion, you mentioned that like the first ratio, that like the ratios that you were not entranced with were the ones that were figured out by the ancient Greeks on how to make humans. Because I forget who it was, but I took an art history class, and some ancient Greek figured out how to make the proportions for humans, where like the head is like 1 to 2 body parts, and the body and the torso is like 2,
face
is the same
5
as the
eyes
legs.
wide.
Yeah.
And your ears are exactly the distance between your eyes and your mouth.
I am referring to, oh my god, I forgot what it's called in Greek. It's called the spearman. Fuck. Shit. Man, I've been out of Latin too long.
That's surprising. Matt has written books in Latin. I want you to think about that. In Latin.
You've played Hades, right?
I have not. I really want to, because I hear it's actually really good in terms of like the mythology and everything.
Matt.
I've told
Matt,
him.
you need to play Hades.
I've told him. I've showed him.
Yeah.
I showed him.
Hold on, Matt. I need you to understand.
I do want to play the game. I just don't have the money.
I will buy you that game on PC, PS4, and whatever else it's out on right now.
Matt, I need you to understand. Hold on. Deion, shut your dumb mouth. The thing that you... Oh, what the fuck?
The Doryphoros. That is the typical statue that the Greeks would make.
So there's like a log that he's like sitting on?
Oh, that was to stabilize it a little bit. They figured out how to fix that later on. Let's see if I can fit this one here. I'm trying to find one without a dick in it, but that's going to be hard to do because the Greeks love some dick.
Well, ironically enough, because they thought that big dick meant people was big dumb, but so that small dick was nice and palatable.
Hilarious to me because of how big people like in the current age, like, I got a big dick. And I was like, well, the Greeks thought you were literally a barbarian because if you had a big dick, that means your brain was small. It was a weird proportion thing they had going on.
It was just tell me you got a small dick and just move on. Like you don't gotta shame big dicks because you're an artist and you got a small dick. That's okay.
Which, if I may add, as many talks I've heard and dealt with from women, women just like men, like they fantasize like, oh, I want some big tits or some big dick, and then they actually get it and go, no, this is actually what I wanted.
See, I've actually heard different. I've heard a lot of women say, yeah, big dicks kind of suck.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
That's exactly, small dicks
that's
too,
exactly what I'm saying.
Like, average dick is bad.
They fantasize about it, but then they get to it and I'm like, no, this is actually uncomfortable and painful and like, this is too much. That's actually a problem.
A big dick is probably fine when it's like a dildo and you can use it at your leisure and you can get around to it. You can do what you want with it. You can go slow, whatever. But when dick in the hands of dumb guy, it's like, probably unpleasant, probably too fast, too rough, etc.
A dick in the hand is worth 2 in the dildo, whatever.
Exactly. So also in that same vein, though, I think just like you said about like people love big boobs so they get them. I've always been befuddled as a young teen that was discovering their sexuality, and as an adult, what the deal is with big boobs. Like I get it,
they're just soft and squishy.
But the thing is, right? For me, I heard this in an old movie a long time ago. Anything more than a handful is kind of a waste. Why do you want?
Not when you're like sleeping on him. But so here's the thing. As a man,
I just want to interrupt you. I'm not here to kink shame anybody. If you love 12-inch dicks, that's up to you.
And tiggle bitties.
Yeah. And if you love tiggle bitties,
good for you.
But I'm going to say,
if you like them small and nice and compact, all on.
I just want the men and women that are listening to understand that in reality, most people like an average scale, like. Men will like B and C cups, and that's fine. Women might like, 4 to 6 inch dicks, and that's fine. Like, they like the average size, but it doesn't mean that, like, smaller isn't necessarily terrible. They might like that. Bigger, they might like bigger, but that's like, it's not a requirement.
So here's the thing. Men with smaller dicks, just learn to use your mouth. Your mouth will save you. I promise you.
Or learn how to play guitar.
Stop talking. Stop talking. Use your tongue.
Wink, wink.
Shut your mouth. The more you talk, the less sex you're going to have. You put that mouth to work. Shut the fuck up. Get between her legs. Use your mouth.
Make sure there's consent. Again, this is the second episode where I got to
skip that part.
Obviously,
don't go in. Just don't start muff diving.
To go back to what I wanted to mention, Matt, to get you on board with fucking Hades, because that's where I'm drawing this conversation now, because we're talking about gay-ass Roman Greek bullshit. And I mean gay-ass in the most beloved, non-derogatory manner.
Yeah.
I promise you, I love...
Yeah. So
the prevalence of homosexuality.
The idea, and just for those of you who aren't aware, the Roman idea of gay had nothing anywhere near what we do as we do currently. The men would have sex with each other all the fucking time in Roman and Greek culture. It was a typical thing. As a matter of fact, one of the Roman emperors, whose name I forget at this current moment, literally had a mental breakdown when his boyfriend died. It was common in their culture.
Before I let Nick go back to his point, because I want to hear it. Prior to Catholicism and then America, being gay was just a thing that you did because it was fine. I studied Japanese culture in college, and I read a whole book on two people arguing about the differences between girl love and boy love for men. Because obviously this is an ancient society. It was still about men. So sorry. But like the point was, there wasn't
he
a
means
wrong...
that seriously, not sarcastically.
How, say what?
You sounded a little sarcastic when you said that, so I wanted to...
No. See, I mean, this is... Which part was sarcastic to you?
The sorry for it being a male-controlled
No,
society.
like, I can't control that, but that's just the way that it was.
Right.
But they didn't argue about the value of... Okay, never mind. Skip that. They did. There was this whole book about the argument between which is better, boy love or girl love. And they didn't put each other down, except for a little bit, but like each side had compelling arguments for and then themselves and against the other party. And it wasn't like you're a degenerate that's going to hell for doing that. It was just like, let's talk about the pragmatic, actual applications of being a boy lover versus a girl lover. And it was the most interesting book that I think I've ever read, because it was like in their society, it was like there was a division, but it wasn't the kind of thing that got you killed. It was just like, I think you're wrong. I think you haven't slept with enough cute little boys. There was also another thing with like, no.
Deion.
We're talking about ancient Japanese and ancient Greek and ancient Roman culture.
We're not talking about little boys, though. Come on now.
If you're talking about ancient Greek and ancient Roman culture, yes, you are.
I think you're talking about Japan. I think you were talking about Japan.
No, the Greeks had that.
Yeah.
And it's one of those issues. So when I took my queer studies class, we talked about that a bit, and the teacher herself was annoyed because people keep bringing that up, and I was also annoyed. It's like, because that's a different situation. It's a different situation when two grown-ass men go, "Hey man, you want to bone down?
You want bang?
Yeah. Oh, I want to bone down. You want to bone down? You want to bone down? I want to bone down. Let's go. Let's bone down." And when you're talking about an 8-year-old child who was just like, "Hey, I want to learn some philosophy, but first you're going to learn this dick," that is uncomfortable, and that is a completely different scenario.
To make it funny, because now I laughed at something awful.
I'm gonna laugh at something awful, guys. I'm gonna laugh at something awful to make it less real.
Nick, don't forget that you want to talk about Hades.
Yes. As you progress through the game, you interact with a bunch of the different gods, and one of the gods that can help you is not Poseidon, god of revelry, god of wine,
Dionysus or Bacchus.
Dionysus. So you interact with Dionysus, and eventually Dionysus is like, "Hey Zagreus," because you play as Zagreus. He's like, "Hey man, we should play a prank on Orpheus."
I love this part. Sorry.
We should tell Orpheus that we are the same god. We should spin this whole storyline about how I am you and you are me, and what the Dionysus that is on Mount Olympus is not actually there, or some bullshit. He goes on this long spiel about how we should just fool Dionysus into believing.
It's a fun little drunk prank that he does.
Right. And I already knew this, that Zagreus was what is the term? Not pre-Chthonic. Is it pre-Chthonic?
It's pre-Chthonic. I think. If you don't...
Basically, before Greek and Roman, or Greek mythology became, like, united, it was more sporadic. You know what I mean, Deion?
Yeah, not to plug a different channel, but... Overly Sarcastic Productions has a beautiful bit on this, or a whole episode.
For Dionysus, I just want to point out a few stories that I find very interesting. One is that he's captured by pirates, and then he tells people, "Hey, I'm a god," and they go, "Ha ha, okay, sure you are, buddy. Whatever, you're a god. And then he turns water into wine. And then they figure out that he actually is a god. And they kind of still don't believe him. And then he kills them all. So that's one thing. And then he, at a certain point, walks on water. He is a... Zeus is a god who has sex with a mortal woman, which is not uncommon. That's basically how every story starts in ancient Greek.
His thing. That's his theme. Yeah.
So
he is literally the god of bastards.
Yeah, he has sex with a mortal woman. And so Dionysus is a demigod born of a god and a mortal woman. And then, and is reborn as his mother dies and is born into Zeus's thigh. So basically, Semele, who is his Dionysus' mother, mortal mother, says, I want to look at your true form. And the thing is that gods couldn't show the true form to humans because it was too outstanding.
Too magnificent.
Yeah, gods were too perfect. And so they would burst into flames. And so gods also can't particularly refuse a request from humans directly. And so when Semele says, hey, I would really like to see your true form because you're obviously a god. You're obviously putting on some sort of disguise to show it to me. And Zeus is like, I can't really refuse. So here we go. And then she goes, cool. And then immediately bursts into flames. And then as, Dionysus' little fetus in the womb, Zeus takes him, puts him in his thigh. And then later on, as he gestates, I guess whatever the hell you want to call it in goddamn theology, that makes no sense. He becomes, Dionysus. It gets born out of Zeus's thigh, which is weird. I just want to point out these few stories because I find them very interesting to other religions.
They're funny. It's also funny that all those things that you just described are very also a little like
literally Jesus. Literally.
It's
literally.
I was going to say little. So literally Jesus.
So when I taught, I had to go. I had to when I taught because I taught public school. I couldn't just come out and say it's a Jesus allegory. There's a reason why. There's a lot of people that study ancient Greek, Roman, and Egyptian myths.
This translation is very Jesus-y.
Like they kind of have a lot of skepticism because it's a little weird. But I never could say that because I'm like, well, I'll get fired on the spot. But I would just point that out and be like, it's a little weird. And then every once in a while, someone would be like, hey, didn't that happen in the Bible? I go, oh, did it? That's really interesting.
Be like,
I love that. I'm like, this kind of like, let's leave room for interpretation. And Nick is just like, it's Jesus. That was the Jesus allegory. Did you hear him say Jesus? Because I heard him say Jesus.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, so I just wanted to mention those few stories because it's very interesting. And also, as we mentioned earlier...
Is anyone there?
Parks?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We can hear you, buddy.
Matt, Deion.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Buddy, you good?
You there? Hello?
Hey.
Kind of the thing I cut out.
It's me you're looking for. And this is where a bunch of bullshit happened. And we cut. Feeling like your friends don't understand you anymore is a symptom of indoctrination. That's kind of
shepherd.
I had a friend that I worked with that I had become. It was my best work friend, to put it into perspective. And we would get together, and she had introduced me to her culture. She was from Honduras. I love baleadas now. I love all sorts of, she taught me about her culture and her language and her people, and it was great. We were friends just because we enjoyed each other's company. But she was, I don't know if it was her husband that brought it to them or it was her just trying to find something to believe in, but she told me one day that her family had become, or she and her husband were making her family Mormon. And my original reaction was, no. And she was like, why? What's wrong with it? It's beautiful. We're so much in touch with the Lord now. And I'm just like, I don't know enough.
Let me introduce you to
tell you why this is so problematic. I don't have
so
the information to tell you.
For those of you that do want to know why it's so problematic, please go listen to the last podcasts on the left, like 4-part series, starting off with Joseph Smith, grave robber, who literally was like, his whole deal in youth was pretending to be a psychic that would find buried treasure for people. And he would use things like the little stick,
dowsing rods?
The little pointy dowsing rod. Yeah, he would use dowsing techniques.
So sad I know that. Sad.
When he died, I believe he was killed by an angry mob. I am not kidding. he was found to have a ritualistic dagger on him that had like different runic inscriptions. So like not just runes, quote unquote, like alchemical symbols, Greek and Roman symbols, all these astrological symbols. Then you get Brigham Young, who basically goes to war with the United States. Listen, I don't remember it all. Listen to the last podcast on the left. They have a great like history of Mormonism, even including modern day issues. Joseph Smith. Sorry, Joseph Smith was the child bride one. Joseph Smth included child brides. Or was that Brigham? God damn it, I can't remember who.
I just looked it up. I couldn't find. I mean, I did like a literally 10-second search.
Well, that's the thing. Mormonism has done their very best to completely make that information gone. Because they have historically pushed themselves away from that. Because I think the guy who took over after Brigham Young was like, whoa.
Well, to put it simply, so when I was commissioned to translate the Book of Mormon, which was not by the church, I want to make that very clear. I was not commissioned by any of the leaders of the church. It was some random follower of the church it was some random dude who wanted me to do that. So, I mean, as much as I'm going to bash on the church itself, I want to be very clear and very honest. But when I read the original one, because he gave me a bunch of options. He said you can use the New Age one that's like 300 pages. It's been revised, it's been changed, it's been edited. And I said, no, if I'm going to translate the Book of Mormon for you, I'm going to do the original version of it, which was a mistake. Holy shit. It was terrible. And so it's 650 pages, and it's intended to be written in like the very old like Hebrew. It's supposed to emulate the Old Testament. But oh my fucking God. Holy shit. It is so bad. If it makes it very clear, I, as someone who is atheist, completely atheist, I do not believe in gods. I do not believe in anything. I translated the Book of Mormon, and I did so with utmost care and diligence because that was my job. And I did so without any criticism, without any vitriol to the person who was paying me to do it, because that was my job, and I have respect for the people who believe what they want to do. This dude was very nice. He was very honest. And he didn't screw me out of any money. He paid me up front, and he paid me ahead of time, and he gave me a bonus. I have nothing wrong with the people who practice Mormonism. I just want you to be happy, and if this makes you happy, so be it. But do I have problems with the literature, and do I have problems with the church and the actions because they hurt people? My ultimate thing is that if what you're doing doesn't hurt anybody else at all, you do your own thing. But as soon as you start hurting other people or impairing their pursuit of happiness, that is where I come into issue, because stop messing with other people's lives. Don't do it. So all I was saying is that we are appreciating and accepting all cultures, no matter how much we bash on the general idea of a thing. If I've met
except for one. No, seriously. Because
no. Don't you dare.
No, seriously. I'm fine with that. Seriously. No, I'm being serious.
French people.
Because I was talking to my mom the other day, like last week, and I kept accidentally, without realizing it, just bashing on capitalism. And then we would change it, and I would change the subject, and then she would say something, and I would be like, that reminds me. And I would basically say, fuck it.
That reminds me.
So we respect all cultures, and we respect all people, except for one type. If you are an American...
If you are Jesus Christ.
And you're listening to this,
support you if you're me.
Gentlemen, this whole podcast is a wash. We got to start over.
If you were an American citizen.
That was an excellent joke, yeah. Perfectly set up. That was a long like walk for a joke, but that was great. We're a horrible traitorous offshoot that then like went over to Africa and was like, hey baby, we're taking all of this. And then we take all of Africa and then we bring it here. And we just horribly beat it into submission. And then we practiced eugenics for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guys, fuck
Are we
America.
the baddies?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. Are we the body? Yeah, exactly.
So
where's the Star Wars reboot where the stormtroopers are Americans?
I think that was
they would have just as many guns and would be just as bad at shooting them. So honestly, where is it?
I always love that when people try to like the stormtroopers aren't bad at shooting, they purposely miss. I'm like, no, they just
that
suck
was
ass.
one time. That was
They
one
suck
time.
ass. Every movie, they're like shooting up like just everywhere over, and I'm like just shooting in a circle. I'm like, dude. There's 70 stormtroopers. You tell me that one didn't fucking aim?
Yeah, they were told to miss the main characters one time. Explain you tell me the rest of the 18 movies that exist now, the Star Wars fucking franchise, and the animated series, and the written books, that they still missed that much
that all
on purpose? Yeah, I don't think so.
All right, we got to movies, guys. we made it to movies.
We did it, and it was Matt that got us there. Ooh, look.
So, guys, I have a question.
Sure, let's do this.
Do you want to hear my question?
Yeah, I want to hear your question.
After the last episode where Deion refused to answer the goddamn question.
That might be my thing, where I just always refuse to answer the question.
Because you
don't do that to me, man.
I want to make this very clear. I've watched this man play RPGs where like choices are the main part of the game. I literally wanted to choke this man.
Hours.
He would sit there with like 4 laptops looking up every single goddamn outcome. He would like compare and contrast. He'd be there on the like tech support, be like, all right, so game developers, when I do this, what's going to happen with the game? And I couldn't. I had to be like, let me know when you're ready to press the fucking button. I'll be asleep over in the next room.
If it was like a serious... I normally don't play like that. But if I can tell that this is going to change the landscape of the game, I'm going to look up the results of this quote moral choice that the game has presented me with. Because sometimes it's like, what kind of bonus do you want? Do you want a buff that gives you this effect or that effect? And that's whatever. But sometimes it's like, do you want to side with the good guys, quote, the rest of the game? Or the morally gray guys / bad guys the rest of the game. And I want to know before I choose, because I've been playing a certain way. And I need to know.
Well then.
You have a new question prior to your original question?
My question for you guys is, if you could relive one moment in your life and change nothing, simply re-experience it, what would it be?
I was really hoping you could say you could change something, because I have a very specific thing that I would like to change in my life.
Change nothing. Simply re-experience it.
So that
Simply
is
re-experience.
So basically, if I could look in a glass ball, snowball, what the fuck is that called? If I could launch a movie of that like, and I mean like literally, if I could relive it, go back in time. Like,
you mean like VR?
Yeah.
But it's like attached to like your nervous system.
Yeah,
you relive it.
Yeah, like every single part of.
If I could just relive it, that's an.
Do I know it's temporary when I'm reliving it?
Yeah. No, it's a will thing. Just one time, just do it.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know this is a tough one.
Because immediately your mind just thinks of so many like critical moments. You know.
Well, because for me, I'm honestly at odds between a very like traumatic moment and a very pleasant moment. Because for me, traumatic would remind me of all the shit that I've been through, of where I started from.
But also, sometimes reliving a traumatic moment with the brain that you have now can help recontextualize it and make you realize that maybe you just responded that way because you were a child, or you know what I mean. But not actually was that serious.
Yeah.
But also, children know what they're feeling and what they feel is valid. So
for most of the traumatic moments I would live, it was mostly with my parents, which absolutely was traumatic.
You probably weren't wrong. You probably weren't wrong. Relive a moment, if only for clarity.
Not if only.
I'm talking to myself. Thank you.
So I'm gonna give 2 answers, and I'm gonna cheat the system a little bit, but basically to give the one traumatic and the one that's very enlightening and uplifting.
Yeah. I'm down for it.
So the traumatic one, I would say, is the day that I moved out of my dad's house, because the day before we had literally gotten into a physical altercation, and the day that I moved out was so impactful for me because it was the realization of, I'm ending this with my dad. I am ending this with my father. This man I had lived with for 19 years. My birthday had just happened. And it's time for me to let go. It's time for me to move on my life. And this is over. And that is the traumatic one. Whereas the pleasant one is actually before that, where I would say safe and sane, where I hung out with a bunch of my friends from high school, including you, Good Parks. And I had a really good time just hanging out, playing a bunch of bullshit games, just walking around, just talking and experiencing life with all of my high school friends. And it was a montage of all the people that I had gone through from elementary school all the way through high school. Because a lot of those people were from elementary school, were in high school, that I was still friends with. And it was a good moment to just kind of talk with everybody and have a final goodbye.
I like it.
I'm having trouble thinking of non-traumatic moments.
Oh, what a surprise.
Oh, no, Deion.
Because...
my baby.
And that's so sad to say, because I tell my mom all the time.
You knew the editing that I had done for the last episode where I cut out so much of your just rambling bullshit, of you just being indecisive.
So I will say there is one moment that I remember from 3rd grade where I was like, I had just seen, I had just gotten a gift from my father, who we were on good terms at the time, before I realized that he was a piece of shit. And I had gotten a new outfit that I could wear at school, and everyone liked it. And whenever I remember the scene, it plays in 3rd person in my head. And I would love to relive it just so I could see, like, this. Did I see myself in 3rd person, low key? Because I can't remember it. I don't remember what I looked at. I just remember looking back over my shoulder like a fucking anime character and giving somebody a death glare, and someone else gave me a compliment at that same time. And I'm just thinking, like, that's the coolest moment of my 3rd grade career. And I'm like,
is Deion's
I don't remember what I looked at, but I remember. But when I look at my, like, the memory, I see myself in 3rd person, and I'm like, the fuck happened? Then my brain,
I got real dissociated.
It was my first time that I could remember dissociating that hard. Like, I do not remember anything else other than
Deion's 3rd grade out of body experience.
Over the shoulder.
I just love the idea of someone coming to, like, hey, I'm Deion. I peaked in 3rd grade. I kind of know where to go. Someone told me my outfit,
really cool
my outfit was just jamming.
It's all been downhill from there.
Imagine peaking in 3rd grade. Jesus Christ.
All right, Charlie Brown, calm down.
The only time I could think of that I would want to relive is probably a traumatic moment, just so I could recontextualize my reaction to it. I remember my uncle passing away. He was a farmer and was one of the few very good male role models I had in my life. Because I didn't have a good good father figure. And he had gone to work on, like, planting some new seeds in a new patch of land that he had just bought. And it was weird. He wasn't answering his phone, and it was weird that he hadn't been home yet. And, they sent a search party for him. And eventually, our worst fears are confirmed, and they had found his body. And I remember still to this day, my aunt shrieking, because I was her husband, and it was like the saddest thing. And I didn't, so my reaction then is my reaction to grief still to this day, which is not sadness, but where is there something I can do? So, like, at the time, my 2 little cousins, my little sister and my little cousin, had been, like, crying because we just found out someone died. And I was just like, it's going to be okay, don't cry. And, like, my older cousin came and it's like, no, it's okay. They can cry. This is really sad. And it was the second time I remember dissociating that hard, because I just looked at everyone else around me, just experienced grief in this major explosive way, and I didn't know what to do, because I didn't feel like I could be sad. Not like I recognized that at that time, but it was just like, I don't know what to do now, because I don't want to cry. Crying feels bad. I want to help somebody. And I just sort of, like, my mind broke out of its shell sort of thing. And I'm just sort of watching everyone else around me be sad. And I know I should be sad, and I am sad, but not in an active way. And this sort of question sort of made me do the question, where I'm reliving this memory. And it's just like, it reminds me of something that I tell people often. I didn't know what to do. I still don't know what to do. I don't think anyone knows what to do. We're all just winging it. And my favorite thing about living in 2021 is if you've made it this far in America, you know for a fact that everyone is winging it because our 44th president wang it the fuck out. There's not a chance you tell me that you don't think you can do so. I don't believe anyone else anymore when they say, I don't think I can do it. And I was like, a Cheeto-fingered, dusty old man slam dunked the presidency and just didn't do anything for 40 years. You can figure it out. You'll be able to make it work. If that dumbass of a thing person can make it work, you can figure it out. Like, I no longer believe people when they say, I'm afraid I don't know what I'm doing. No one knows what they're doing, bro. The most powerful man in the world for 40 years was the most incompetent TV personality that we've ever produced.
It is one of the greatest lies they tell you about adults. I am 27. Again, I have a house. I have 2 jobs. I try to be professional and responsible. Dude, I wing it every day. I take it day by day. I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. I just go for it, man. It's just life. No adult really knows what they're doing. No parent knows what they're doing. You just go. You just figure it out.
No one knows what they're doing. And it sucks and it feels bad, but it's okay. Like it sucks and it feels bad, but it's okay. Like, you're not the only one. And so, like, even though I struggle with decision paralysis, as has been exemplified this episode and last episode, and as per the
every question that we ever get.
Listen. And as you pointed out at the top, like, I've also struggled with, like, dealing with feelings of failure or fear of rejection. I recently drafted an email and I was on a phone call. My supervisor called me and was like, let's go over your review. You've been doing well. And I was like, great. And it took all my courage in that moment to be like, I think that I deserve a raise. And I almost didn't do it. I worked there for over a year and a half. I definitely deserve a raise. Inflation, cost of living in my area, et cetera, et cetera. But they don't do it automatically. They don't do quarterly reviews for raises. They just show you what you've been doing wrong and right. If you want a raise, you got to ask. And it was so hard for me because I was like, what if they say no? And the thing is, they can't fire you for asking for a raise. Especially not if you're a basic employee. And it's just like, listen, it may be hard for you to get the courage that you need to do the things that you want. And there are worse things than being told no. Don't let people lie to you. People can mock you and ridicule you and do all sorts of awful things to sort of discourage you. But the truth of the matter is that in your heart of hearts, basically, you know your worth. And if you're thinking about it, if you're trying to go for it, but you're not confident enough, know that that feeling usually is more than enough to sort of self-validate the fact that you are in fact worth it. And you should go for it anyway, because the only way to get better at going for it is to just go for it, which sucks, but it's true. So that's all I have to say about that, I guess.
And we found the message that we should have been sent to the last episode. If you want to say a telepathic message to everybody in the world, that was beautiful. And so, Nick, after we've delayed for like 20 minutes, you get to answer.
We're good.
So
we're good. I love this. This is my favorite part of every episode.
Yeah, and it's going to be the end of every episode. But Nick, your turn.
So my answer is also...
And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for living up.
Yeah, come back. I'll answer it next week with Deion.
Sometimes I do.
No. It's a twofer because I can't pick between these two.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
They're both good memories. They're memories with friends.
Oh, this is some gay ass shit. Never mind.
One would be the escape room. Deion,
I love that.
And what's his face did.
I had a friend from college come visit me, and I didn't know what to do, and he kind of sprung it on me, but I had like a few days to plan, so I was like, well, let's do an escape room. I've always wanted to do one. Yeah. Okay. I've got a friend or two that might be able to show up. It ended up just being, I think, the 3 of us. So it was me, a friend of college, and then Nick here. And I'm sure that they might have fudged the numbers, but it felt close enough that maybe we didn't. we barely solved this escape room within like seconds of the time limit, and it just felt so cool and so good. So like we used just enough hints to get through. It was amazing.
So the fun part is that I had never done an escape room, and we actually got, talked to by the guy who was running the escape room that night, and he was like, "So, any of you have any experience with escape room?" And the guy who's with us, his name's Andrew.
Yeah? Alan was my friend.
Alan was with us. Alan is something of an escape room aficionado. He had done quite a few of them and was very ready to get.
He was ready for it for sure. Yeah.
And Deion,
I had not done it in a real life escape room before. No.
So that's exactly it. My response was, no, I've never done one, but I've played video games. And he gave me this look like, oh, okay.
I missed that.
And basically got this like, maybe you should be a little more nervous. You're not prepared for this. So then when I'm like playing it off nonchalantly, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, I really want to do this. Like, I want to show this dude that fuck his little escape room experience. I'll do it. So the entire time we're like going through it. At one point, I think I get a little heated with Alan because
to be fair, you get a little heated with everybody, but yeah.
I get a little heated with everybody when I'm in a scenario where I'm like trying to solve
Also, Alan gets a little like, he's the kind of person that he incites that in people. I will admit that for him. He won't be here to admit it. He incites that in people.
Which is okay. Sometimes you need people that ignite a little flame under your ass. But so we were finishing it up. We're getting to the last like couple of seconds, and we're going. We're figuring it out. I cannot remember for the life of me what it is we're doing. We're trying to like find a key or some shit. And we managed to do it. And right as like the little thing that says we've won comes up, I literally just start screaming like, yeah, that's how we fucking do it. And I like start pointing at the camera and yelling at it. Just like, I don't know, that was such a fun experience, and I really enjoyed it. And like thinking back on it, I was just like, wow, that would be a night I would love to re-experience. And part of that was, Deion, you really made part of that experience. You're the one that offered it to me. So I'm really thankful for that. And the other one is in a similar vein, though, in a different emotional vein. It must have been 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. I'm not really sure. When I was still in college, me and a friend named Jen, were hanging out one night, and we were just driving around, just fucking smoking weed, parking, smoking weed, feeling a little nervous, driving to a different spot. And we ended up in this abandoned parking lot, and we just sat in the abandoned parking lot, just fucking high, listening to, I think, like synthwave music, and just chatting until the sun came up. I think we were there until like 4 or 5 a.m. And just, I was thinking about it while you two were talking, and like no traumatic experience was one I wanted to relive. I wanted to stay as far.
Well, it's because I'm a fucked up person, so.
But the first like memory that was just like, everything about it was exactly what I want, like, to relive. I was just like, wow, just the person I was with, fantastic. The scenario, fantastic. The mood, fantastic. And not in like a romantic sense, in like a very like just calming, peaceful, soothing sense. It was very nice. So yeah, those are my answers. It's just two very fun evenings. That I really.
I have a problem with memory. Not with memory, but with just remembering. If you tell me something cool or interesting that I was part of, I will remember it. But for some reason on my own, it's harder for me to remember things that weren't awful, which is sad because you must think that as a result that I just relive all my most awful memories often. And you'd be right. I live a very sad existence where I'm just always critical of myself and sad about all things I've done. But I've done a lot of cool things and great things too. And I think a lot of people have the experience of being harsher on themselves than they have experienced.
Well, and
I want to let people know in general, like, you can be nicer to yourself, please. Please be nicer to yourself. You deserve it.
It is.
And if you're finding it hard to be nice to yourself, talk to your friends. Ask them to remind you of
their favorite memory of you.
Right. Remind you of the things that you were a part of in their time that you simply have lost in your sea of sadness. Because I promise you...
To go back to the original part of the episode, so people, especially when I was in high school and college, would tell me that I'm very handsome, like I'm attractive. I don't see that. Even to this day, I don't. And that's just because I have lived with myself for 27 years. I know my imperfections. I see my face and go, well, that's a little weird. I don't like that. You are so much harder on yourself than people will ever realize. I like my voice. People really like my voice. There are things about my voice that I don't like, and things about my character, things about the way I deliver things, the way that I look and dress and all that stuff. You are so much hard. You will notice every flaw, every imperfection, every little thing and detail that people will never even notice. Don't be so hard on yourself. There are so many things about you, your character, your personality, your voice, how your hair looks, all these sorts of things that people will never notice, not because they don't care about you, but because it's not important to them, and because it's not really that big of a deal. Yeah, you might have a bad hair day. People don't give a shit. It happens. Everybody has a bad hair day. It happens, man. So, just as Nick said, be kind on yourself. It's okay. Fuck you, Deion. Deion, I love you.
Thank you for listening to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. We started with the fear of failure, and we ended up with the fact that stormtroopers can't hit shit. And we, just like you guys, have no idea how we got there either. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope to see you next Thursday. If you want to support us, we do have a Patreon page. Rhuminus, will stream on Twitch every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I upload to YouTube, and I've also published 2 books, and you can support us that way if you'd like. And also, as we mentioned earlier...
Is anyone there?
Parks?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We can hear you, buddy.
Matt, Deion.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Buddy, you good?
You there? Hello?
Hey.
Kind of the thing I got cut out.
It's me you're looking for.
Also known as Rhuminus. Were you buffering? What happened?
What? Well, maybe we should restart now, because we've just fucked this whole thing up.
Whatever. Okay. Ready?
Want to restart?
Alright, so I feel like the order should be Matt, Deion, Nick, because that's what we had last time. Unless you want to switch it up, I'm fine with that.
I always want to do a thing. Yes. Rule of threes. I will lick your butthole. I'm still recording. Are we restarting, or are we still recording this?
No, we're recording this because this is going to the intro, motherfuckers.
Oh, fuck me.
Oh, you bitch.
You're a dumb hoe. We never stop recording.
Alright, everybody stop recording, you fuckers.